16 and a half minutes before 9 o'clock right now, and our next guest on today, Albert Einstein. Well, if that catches you a little bit by surprise, let me explain. It is Albert Einstein in the person of actor Ed Metzger in a one-man show that he calls Albert Einstein, the Practical Bohemian. You know, most of us think of Albert Einstein as the great scientist that he was, and people have now recently picked out Harry Truman to portray, or Mark Twain, because they seem to have a wide range of life. What was it about Einstein that appealed to you as a character? It wasn't until Leah Gelf and I researched the man that we found out that there was more than just a scientist. He was a humanist, a philosopher, a father, and maybe not a very good father, a husband of 2 wives, not at the same time. Yeah. And there was many facets that I thought would be very interesting to bring to the stage. You have a physical resemblance of sorts just sitting here. But what we want to do now is show you Ed Metzger as he really is, and then show this tape of a segment of Ed Metzger as Albert Einstein.
It is good. The very first thing I did when I arrived at Princeton was find my way to the mall shop and get an ice cream cone. Vanilla is my favorite. On the way out, I was recognized. Oh, there's Dr. Einstein. Dr. Einstein, Dr. Einstein. And there was a big commotion. You see, I am always intimidated when strangers gather around me in the street. Usually they are newspaper reporters and photographers, and they are asking me to find the fourth dimension, state the theory of relativity, comment on politics, what about prohibition, pacifism, sum of your religion, who picks out your clothing, Dr. Einstein? And they want the answers all in one sentence. You know what I do? I discuss the virtues of my violin playing. As for my clothing, I tell you personally, I have often been described as a poor dresser. But I think of myself as being casual. I am what is known as a practical bohemian. Because I say, long hair minimizes the need for a barber. And when you wear shoes, socks can be done without. They only produce holes. You see, I adhere strictly to the precepts of the brilliant theoretical physicist L. Boltzmann, who said, matters of elegance should be left to the tailor. From time to time, I find that I need to get away from everything, even my work. And high in the Adirondack Mountains, where the air is fresh and crisp, lies a beautiful, peaceful Saranac Lake. It is where I keep my sailboat, the Tumbler. Tumbler is Yiddish for Hellraiser. I enjoy the thrill of sailing. I go out onto the lake, hoist up the sail, light up my cigar, and I wait. I feel the stillness of the air, never knowing when nature will bring that wind. It is so exciting to wait for nature to act. And then the wind starts blowing, gathering its momentum, catching into the sails as it carries me and my boat further out onto the water. Faster and faster we go, rudder to the right, the wind now carrying us full speed ahead. As I go straight on for the other boats, I can see the faces of the people on those boats. I take my hands off the rudder and I wave to them. And now I could see the astonishment in their faces. Then, rudder to the left, veering off to within inches of the other boats. The naughty boy of Saranac Lake, as I am called, sails, as in physics, close to the wind.
Was that a studied appearance that he had, that eccentric kind of look with the hair and those socks and so on?
I think basically it was the practical bohemian, which, by the way, the name came from the students at Princeton. The man just didn't care. He didn't have an ego. He had a lot of confidence in what he did and in his work, but he had no ego.
Was he much taken with the celebrity at all, do you think? Did he like the idea of getting all that attention?
No, he didn't like the idea. He couldn't understand why. As a matter of fact, one afternoon he was here in New York in the early 1930s, and he was honored with a ticket tape parade. And they threw magazines at him and newspapers, millions of people here in New York. And he turned around to the mayor of New York and he said, I never thought so many people understood the theory of relativity.
He was, I think, for my generation at least, the absolutely epitome of genius, you would say, if you want to talk, well, who do you think you are? Einstein, if you wanted to say somebody who was smart.
Sure.
But you play before college audiences now, a different generation. Einstein's been dead for some time. Do they still identify with him? Do they have a feeling for who he was and what he did?
It's amazing. That was one of the big worries I had when I went out on the college circuit, and it is absolutely phenomenal that they want a hero, that there's an intelligence and intellect, and yet a man that had frailties and had failings in life with his family and so forth.
He was not a good father, you said.
Well, he was a father that didn't understand his children, and his children couldn't understand the fame that he had. And he couldn't deal with that very well. One son wound up in an institution, a mental institution in Switzerland, and the other son did well, became an engineer at Berkeley. But he had problems with both of the sons.
How did he like the society in which he lived, which was about the beginning of the great consumer society in this country, with cars and radios and electronics?
Oh, well, it drove him crazy. He said, you know, we're slaves to millions of things, radios, refrigerators, automobiles. He would go around the campus, people would ask him, what do you sleep in, Dr. Einstein? And he would say, well, to be very honest with you, he says, I sleep in the minimum of what I have to. When you go to sleep at night, nightshirts and pajamas are needless if you have bed covers. So he boiled everything down to a basis minimum.
Yeah. Do you deal with a letter to Franklin Roosevelt urging him to build the atomic weapon?
Yes, it's very interesting. He was approached to sign that letter. We did not know of atomic energy. He signed the letter that stipulated that the bombing of a port is possible with such devastation that if we had to use it against a foreign power to save ourselves, the United States, or the free world, so to speak, that we should take advantage of this. Of course, Roosevelt said, well, this is an absent-minded professor. But after Fermi cracked the atom bomb in Chicago, or the atom in Chicago, University of Chicago, that they realized that there was the power of this bomb, that this Einstein was not so crazy. Of course, after, when the bomb was used, he said, I'm sorry, I belong to the rotten species of mankind.
You've had scientists come backstage in your performances.
Oh, yes, we have. I have people trying to sell me, if I will give my approval on anti-gravity instruments, or, will I endorse a compass? I said, look, I'm an actor. I appreciate the compliment, because it is a compliment.
Are you much of a scientific mind?
Well, I had 4 years of pre-medicine, but I would think I'm more of an actor than I am a scientist.
And a very good actor indeed. Ed Metzger, who plays Albert Einstein, the practical bohemian, on a lot of college campuses, and possibly, we hope, at some point, he'll come to Broadway with that show.
Well, I hope so. Thank you.
Back right after this message.